Good evening, everybody. You're very welcome back to the Agri Motor Farm Machinery YouTube channel. So this evening, I'm going to give a quick talk on something that's become very topical recently, and that's the use of hydrogen as a fuel source for internal combustion engines. I suppose JCB and Cummins are two of the biggest engine manufacturers in the world in terms of engineering that have been pioneering this, and it's interesting to see the efforts that they're going to. Because I suppose when you look at the alternative to a diesel or a petrol engine, it's going to be your hybrid diesel or your hybrid petrol or a full electric engine. Now that's fine in the automotive industry. I'm all for electric power when it comes to cars and that around cities. That's great, but when it comes to agricultural and plant equipment, especially these machines that could be running 14, 16, 18 hours a day, um, you know, with serious power requirements, you need a big battery to be able to sustain that for that length of period. And that's the problem with you know, full electric vehicles for off-highway use. So what JCB and Cummins have done is they've started to invest in research and development into the development of hydrogen engines. So hydrogen, we've all heard of hydrogen. We know it comes from water. So hydrogen. What does it mean? Hydro is water, and gene is to form. So water forming. It's of water. So where does it come from? So what we need to do is look at our science when it comes to this. Now I'm no scientist, but I know enough about fuel and stuff down through the years to know a little bit of the background. So hydrogen is a chemical element with a symbol H and the atomic number 1. Hydrogen is the lightest element. At standard conditions, hydrogen is a gas, diatomic molecules having the formula H2. It is colorless, odorless, tasteless, non-toxic, and highly combustible. And I suppose when you look at those traits of hydrogen down at the bottom there, there's good and bad in both. So the fact that it is highly combustible means it's perfect for use in an engine. Um, and tests have shown that the air fuel ratio of a hydrogen engine compared to say a standard petrol or diesel engine is it's multiple times what a standard ICE engine is, an internal combustion engine is. So a hydrogen engine air fuel ratio will range from roughly 35 to 1 up to anything something around 100 to 1. So that's 100 particles of air to 1 particle of fuel. Now just to put that into perspective, a standard petrol engine, would be running at about 14.7. I think that's the stoichiometric ratio. That's the optimum air fuel ratio for an internal combustion petrol engine is 14.7 to 1. Diesel would be a little bit less. That's why diesel would be more efficient, I suppose, than your standard petrol engine. So what's the problem? Why isn't it being widely used? I suppose the main reason is probably safety. So that's the one thing that everybody is worried about. Hydrogen, as it says in its own description, is highly flammable. The flame point of hydrogen compared to petrol alone is, it's vastly more flammable than petrol. And in part two of this video, we'll get more into detail about the differences between an internal combustion engine that runs on more typical fuels like petrol and diesel, as opposed to hydrogen engine, and what the main differences are, and where the similarities are. So the problem probably is one of the main reasons is safety. So hydrogen to be used as fuel needs to be stored as a liquid, and liquid hydrogen in its natural form is a gas. So what needs to happen is it needs to be compressed. So to store it in a tank, it needs to be compressed and held under great pressure. And that's where the problem lies, I suppose. You need serious tanks, probably, I don't know, multiple times the strength of a standard petrol or diesel engine. Like they're not a normal tank. Like a petrol engine would have a plastic tank, you just fill it with fuel and that's it. A hydrogen, it's probably going to be made of stainless steel. It's going to be bonded. It's going to be strengthened. It's going to have to withstand. I don't know what the pressures are, but I will look up for the next video the technicalities at that end. But that's, I suppose that's the problem. And then storing it off site or on site for use is another problem. Now they are far more efficient, so you will use 3 times less hydrogen as you do with your standard fuels. Um, JCB, I suppose, when you look at them, what they have done is they have taken one of their standard engines and basically the bottom half of the engine, the block half of the engine is the exact same. They've spent over 100 million pounds sterling developing this system, researching, developing, producing, and they have done it with great effect. Um, so the bottom half of the engine is pretty much the same block. Pistons might be a little bit different because they're dealing with higher temperatures and higher pressures. Um, they will run faster, so they will allow a petrol engine might run up to 9, 10,000 RPM, depending on whether it's two-stroke or four-stroke, or how small the engine is, how big the engine is. The hydrogen engines will run a lot faster, especially more quicker than a diesel engine. A diesel engine will be maxed out at about 2,500, something in a tractor or in a loader or something. So they will run a lot quicker. So I'm sure there has to be changes made to the drivetrain, the timing gears, the chains probably do have to be stronger. The valve train will have to be modified and stronger. So the intake manifolds and that will have to be changed. They still have a turbo because they do need a lot of air. They do run on an excess of air, so they will have a turbocharger. They'll still have a cooling system. But yeah, JCB, they've had great success with their trials. They have a hydrogen engine on test in a backhoe loader and a track machine. Yeah, I think a backhoe loader and a track machine and a loader, and then they actually put one of their hydrogen engines into Mercedes Sprinter van, one of their own vans that they had for around the factory. They took a hydrogen engine, they put it into it, and it's been on test for the last couple of years since it went into development. Um, they've also put it into a 7.5 ton Mercedes truck. So it's just to show that it can be done, and it can be done quite, I won't say easily, but it is a serious alternative to the electric end of things. Um, the problem with the electricity when it comes to electrical end of things, you do need colossal batteries. So a track machine that will be running at 2,000 RPM flat out, say it could be 300 or 400 horsepower, whatever it is, driving oil pumps and whatnot. Um, they are hungry, you know what I mean. So they are going to use up a lot of energy. So they're going to need colossal batteries. They're going to need to be charged. So if you have a battery, like a battery in a standard EV could be between 60 and 80 kilowatts. You could be looking at 3, 4, 500 kilowatts, I suppose, in an off-highway battery. Um, to charge that, then it's going to take hours and hours and hours. How long will the battery last depends on how hard the battery or the engine has been working, how many kilowatts has been drawn per hour. Standard car will draw about 15 kilowatts per hour. So if you have an 80 kilowatt battery, you know, you've got a drive time of maybe 4 or 5 hours, depending on weather, depending on conditions, temperatures. Um, temperatures have a big part to play in battery efficiency. Hydrogen, no change whatsoever. You literally will a driver will hardly notice any difference between a hydrogen engine and a comparative diesel engine. Torque outputs are the same. RPM might be slightly a little bit higher, but it'll still bolt onto the transmission. You'll still drive it the same. You still have the same, feeling of driving it, that acceleration feeling. Whereas an electric powered vehicle, they'll develop most their maximum torque actually from standstill, whereas an internal combustion engine, especially diesels, will they'll have a torque curve, and they will meet their torque maybe at around 15, 1700 RPM. That's where they're at their most efficient and where they produce the most torque. And hydrogen engines aren't going to be much different. So yeah, I suppose looking at it all, then I suppose getting it out there. So for JCB, getting it into production, getting it out with customers, getting it tested. It's interesting to note that what they have done on the fuel end of things, they have set up their own fuel rig on the back of a JCB fast track. So they have a tank, a pump, a whole unit mounted to the back of the JCB fast track. So if you think of someone that has, say, a farm maybe with, I don't know, 20 machines that are running on hydrogen, maybe not a farm, could be a building site, um, where you're doing groundworks and whatever. So this JCB, its sole purpose basically is just to go around each machine and keep it full of hydrogen. Now, full tank can last up to 3 days, whereas with a tractor, if you're working hard, you can empty a tank easily within a day. Um, so that's it, I suppose, as regards the development. It's interesting from JCB what they've done. It seems to be where they're putting their money. That's where they seem to be focusing their attention. I'd imagine hydrogen hybrid would probably be, you know, could be more likely. So if you have a hydrogen engine running, you know, driving a generator that might be running the body electrics on a machine, or it could be running a PTO that doesn't need a high output. You could have a separate motor driving a PTO. I know John Deere have done that with some of their hydrogen, or sorry, some of their hybrid tractors. So it just has an electric motor, that's just driving the PTO or whatever. So yeah, it's interesting to see what they've done. Cummins, in the United States, one of the largest engine manufacturers in the world, they have gone down the route of their 6.7 litre engine and their 15 litre engine, um, have hydrogen capabilities as well. So they've gone down what's called the agnostic route. So their block will be the same across their platform. So whatever fuel source you're using, it's the same block, it's coming off the same production line, and what engine you choose then depends on what cylinder head and inlet manifold and what machine it goes into them. So they are developing a suite of engines, that are going to be no emission and ultra low emission. So hydrogen would be classed as ultra low emissions to no emissions. Um, it does burn hotter, burns a lot hotter. It does have, the byproduct of it, obviously, of burning hydrogen is water, but you do have an element of NOx. Now, it's not to the degree that you have in a diesel engine, far from it. But there is a small element of NOx there, nitrous oxide. Um, Now, I can't see them going down the AdBlue route or anything like that. Yeah, until maybe 30, 40 years down the line, when it's banned to have any pollutants coming out of an engine. So that's really where it is at the minute. The problems, I suppose, yeah, the problem is the storage. The problem is getting it from the water form. So if you take seawater, it has to be desalinated. Then it has to go through its electrolysis. So that all takes electricity as well to do all that. So you're using electricity to make hydrogen to power a vehicle. Some people say, why don't you just use the electricity in the first place? But it's not about why don't you just, it's a matter of making it so that the end user, that it's practical. Having a battery in a plant machine is, if it's working hard, it's not overly practical. So that's where it lies. That's where the problems are with electricity, the problems with hydrogen. Um, I do think it has huge potential. I do think for the agri and the plant end of things, and probably trucks as well, um, uh, it probably is the future, and I think it should be the future. Um, it's something that should be invested in. unfortunately, the governments aren't talking. From what I can see, the governments aren't talking too much about it, and they should be. They should be looking to what the likes of Cummins are doing and what JCB are doing. Lord Bamford himself, he's pushing this hard. Um, I've seen some great videos with him on YouTube talking about the system, and he's very, very passionate about it. They're a very innovative company, and um, it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. So yeah, look, that's it for tonight. Just a quick video, quick ramble, I suppose, on my thoughts on hydrogen. I'm all for it when it comes to plant, when it comes to agri, when it comes to trucks and buses, anything that works indoors. Um, in a car, it would want to be very safe because if you have a car traveling at 120, 30 kilometers an hour and you are in an accident and you rupture a tank, well, I know electric batteries don't exactly have a great reputation when it comes to fires, but I think if hydrogen, tank full of hydrogen was to leak, it could be catastrophic. So that's where the problem lies. And until that they get that 100% safe and effective, that it can be used um, in and around the areas of the general public, we'll not see it in cars, but out in the middle of the field, there's no real risk. In a quarry, there's no real risk. It's a machine working on its own, doing its own thing. There's no real risk from um, anything catastrophic happening to it. So yeah, that's my thoughts. I'm going to be back on Sunday, hopefully. Now I do have a busy weekend ahead, and I do have a little 10-week-old baby in the house that are keeping me busy. So I do plan on getting the part two of this out on Sunday, and part two will be looking more at the engine itself, how it works, and the differences between a diesel and petrol engine. One quick thing I'd like to say is I want to thank you all very much. Anyone that has subscribed to the channel over the last week, I think we gained an extra 60 subs now. I'm up over the 100 subscribers at this stage, which is fantastic for some people. Obviously, it's a drop in the ocean, but for me, it's 100 more than I had 5 weeks ago, and it's given me great confidence to push on. And I do have a lot in the pipeline coming down. I have a lot of interviews lined up with different manufacturers to talk about different machines. I do want to get a few more subscribers on the channel first, just get it a little bit more, so that those people that I'm going to be videoing, that they are getting something out of it as well. That I'm not showing the video to 50 people or whatever, that they're going to get something out of it as well. So just thank you all very much for subscribing. It means the world to me, and I'm going to carry on with these videos as long as you keep watching. So until Sunday, thank you very much.